Podemos iniciar, né?
Well, I think we can start. Good morning, everyone. The webinar World Skills Americas has the collaboration of our education committee, led by Mrs. Elsie Escolar and Maura Corporan, that are members of the board of World Skills Americas that coordinate all the activities regarding education and webinars and issues related to education that are always recorded and available at World Skills America's homepage. And before start, I would like to share this slide so you can know how to proceed. To ask questions, you have to click the Q&A icon that you see in the bottom toolbar of the Zoom of the Zoom platform, and to listen to these presentations in your preferred language, in Spanish with our translator Carmen, and also the option of English, where we have Sylvia translating from Portuguese into English. So please, you can access interpretation by clicking the globe icon, where you have a suspended menu with the options of languages. So to start a webinar, today we will have the topic social emotional competences, which we know it is key in any profession, in any job, and makes total difference in professional education, professional training. And for that, we'll have the talk by Professor Mario Silveira Marin. He is a professor in Senai Antonio Adolf Globe in the city of São Carlos, which is countryside São Paulo state. And Professor Marinho has a history in the world of professional training, passing through different stages of evolution, and he has been a reference for us in actions, activities, strategies for the development of social emotional competences. So Professor Marinho, thank you for your contribution. Thank you for sharing with all of us your experience and spirit required by the World Skills Americas board, to which we are all members, and we propose to take to all educators in the Americas the knowledge from the educational world, especially professional education. Our board has different members from different countries, and we would like to thank as well all our delegates. Delegates are our ambassadors, our champions, connecting all the actions of World Skills Americas, mainly in their home countries. Where, for instance, in this webinar, we have the invitation sent to our delegates, to the members of the board that are official delegates representing countries, and they share this with the other educators in their countries. So thank you, all members and delegates. And once again, Marinho, it's an honor. It's our dear Professor Marinho, thank you for this contribution, and you have the floor. Good luck in sharing your experiences. So far, we have 196 educators, but there's always people joining. So the proposal of World Skills Americas is sharing experience and education in the world, especially in professional education. is once again with you, and through Professor Marinho, we will share part of the social emotional skills. Marinho, you have the floor. Thank you, Professor Spada. Thank all the participants. Thanks all the participants. And it is a great joy and pleasure to have this opportunity to share some of what we learned at Senai. I'm fruit of this experience as I was a student here. Senai transformed my life, and professional education made this transformation possible. And it's been 27 years that I'm in Senai. Throughout this period, I've been studying these issues, especially regarding behavior. Needless to say, the importance of this topic, we have thorough documentation about that. This week, I just saw a documentary by Microsoft ranking the competences, the skills that will be required for a classroom in 2030. The report and documentary has 29 pages and mentions 66 times the topic of emotional competences. So the importance is clear. I'm the director of a school in the city of São Carlos that is 230 kilometers far from the capital city of São Paulo. And in Senai, we have all the levels of professional education, learning skills, technical courses, short and long courses, and also undergraduation and graduate courses. And we intend to share with all of you these concepts that I learned as at the moment I arrived in Senai, which is curious because throughout my academic trajectory, I see that not many schools talk about this emotional competences, although this is very clearly depicted in educational documents and the very institutions. So I would like to address 4 concepts very objectively related to social emotional competences and share with you two successful experiences we had recently here in the school with our management team and with our students, educators and students. So now I will share my presentation with you, and I'll start by provoking you. These emoticons that we use in our smartphones, this is a language that takes us back to the pictographic or symbolic representation from the times of cavemen and from Ruprestrian language, Ruprestrian images, and is being used very much today. And currently, it's very hard to maintain our emotional balance in the relations with our teams, the educators and students. It's a very hard task, and to balance our emotions on a daily basis. And I like very much this image because it represents how much it changes our daily life. This slide that was used in one webinars, Dr. Lucchesi in a national webinar, he mentioned these skills. The definition is the classic, is mobilizing knowledge, skills and attitudes. Senai works with that from foundation, from day one. Our idealizer, Professor Roberto Lange, already talked about the formation of human before the professional. And as known, organizations hire professionals testing mostly knowledge and skills. And in 80% of the cases, they lose their jobs. They are fired due to attitudes, to behaviors. So the companies know that investing in developing in knowledge and skills works. Having a course on digital, on computer, they will learn and they will come with the full domain, mastering the issue. But for behavior, 1 week seminar won't be, there's no guarantee that this will change the attitudes of the person. So we share this information also with our students, saying how important is it to use the moment of formation to also develop attitudes, behaviors that are so important, so much important as knowledge and skills. Our methodology, the methodology we use here at Senai, this document was also used, this slide was also used in other webinars, talks about the education by competences, the theory by Floist of abilities of schools. And what we will address today in our meeting is a cross-section with all of that, of mediation criteria, the items that are approached in this methodology. So once again, more than written and comprehended in documents, we, in front of processes, we should transform these concepts into actions so our students and collaborators can make use and feel the difference that is developing a social emotional skill. The educational proposal for Senai in Senai São Paulo, first version prepared in the year 2001, mentioned the report by Jacques Delors from UNESCO, highlighting these 4 pillars of knowledge: knowing how to learn, knowing how to do, knowing how to live together, and knowing how to be. So it's with a very special highlight in our educational proposal, covering or comprehending all our faculty members, our professors and students, that this has to be approached during their studies. Our educational proposal or pedagogical proposal in Senai São Paulo, and this is a document where each of the 92 schools of Senai São Paulo establish, beyond the guidelines, institutional guidelines and educational guidelines, they also established the proposal of the institution for the community where they are inserted. So here, some issues: communication, life project, empathy and cooperation, and self-knowledge and self-care. Communication passes through all training process and in our daily life in an educational institution. This is an extremely complex process that we try to learn every day. There is another document where we talk about social emotional competences. In this document, where established the competences, the skills to be developed with the whole methodology, especially for that, here in companies. And it's very common, as in every course plan. In this case is a course for tooling, recently restructured, and there in Metalworks, so there they have to show a systemic view, maintain interpersonal relationship, and be able to work in a team. or teamwork. So with that, we get to the first topic that I want to highlight. Here in the screen, I'm sharing everything I've learned about the skills of hearing, how to hear. It might sound strange because it's very common that people in a first moment say, well, but I know how to hear since I was born. I have hearing capacity and it is a natural process. It is my hearing capacity, my hearing skill. And this is a concept that I learned when I was 21 and I started studying in Senai. And the question is, why didn't anybody told me this before? Because I could have used that and this would benefit me if I knew that before. But throughout my school and academic trajectory and also in my family, due to a lack of opportunity, I know that it's not a lack of will of my parents, but because they didn't know, no one ever said that you need to learn how to hear. This really sounds strange. The text that I will share with you, or it will be sent to you right after the presentation, is very simple. I just asked the organizing team to translate it into English and Spanish. It's very simple, 26 paragraphs numbered, so it is so you can have a collective understanding, carry out group activities, which is what we do with our team. And whenever we can, we share this experience with other colleagues and other institutions. In a very summarized way, the text says that our brain has a thinking capacity that is equivalent to about 500 words. And we cannot pronounce more than 125 words per minute. And we process 500, but we can pronounce just 125. So with that, we have a gap of thinking too fast while we are communicating. And if we are not careful, if we do not train our brains for these conditions, it is very common to deviate, to digress, to lose concentration, lose focus. We think we can do more things at once. For many, it is even worse. It is something physiological or pathophysiological that we lose. Women have this more developed. They are able to do more than one thing at once, but not men. So if we are not careful, our mind lose track while we are talking. We are in a meeting, we are in a physical environment, in an auditorium, and we are hearing people talk, but we are not paying attention because this is a very complex intellectual skill. Hearing requires development. I used to say that as we learn to work with machinery, equipment, and there are techniques to do so, in behavioral issues, the concept is the same. We need to understand and we need to develop these competences. And the good thing of studying social emotional competences is that we don't have to believe only in the person who is talking, which is a tip that I give you. When you try to learn the concepts, the most convincing way to learn them is testing with your team, testing with people from your relations, and you will see how important this action reaction is important. It is fascinating and change the way we establish relationships with people, with other people. In the right-hand corner, where we see a horse drinking water in a lake, the text also mentioned that we, in our daily work in management and in classroom, we apply, if there's no context, if there's no purpose, the person can be within a classroom connected to technological equipment, but may not be paying attention because they don't see the importance of the topic. The text says you can take the horse to the lake, but you cannot oblige the horse to drink water. The horse will only drink water if it is thirsty. So to make people thirsty is the role of the leadership, those conducting the meeting or the educational process. Another very important concept I learned in this document is empathy, which is the middle bottom figure. To see from the other perspective, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Then the text talk about sympathy and empathy. I know how you feel. This is being sympathetic. I feel like you. This is being empathetic. It's really putting yourself in someone's shoes. And this exercise make us think and have a different attitude. How do my customer is served in the communication process? Be it emails, by phone, we have to exercise empathy to improve our communication process as a whole. And lastly, the picture of the elephant. It's a very well-known story. The five blind men are invited to touch an elephant in different parts, and then they are asked, how is an elephant? This is a very famous Indian tale. The blind man that is touching the body of the elephant says, this animal is so hard as a wall. The blind man that is touching the trunk says, oh, it's very similar to a snake, and so on and so forth. Those touching the tail says, oh, it looks like a rock with a rope. So the educator, the leader of the process of the team has, well, none of them is wrong, actually. Their descriptions are right, but the problem is that they see just one part of the elephant. So the person conducting the process, leading the process, have to provide context, a global overview, systemic overview, and exercising that issue that we have to respect the other person point of view, the perception of the problem, of the process, of the communication. So this has to be this has to be motivated and followed up. This is not something that comes from night to day. That's why we insisted so much on that throughout these years. So in this slide on how to hear, I try to summarize the whole communication process: perception, visual issues, gestures, physiognomy. This is extremely important, especially now that we live in a connected world. This platform allows us to allow you to see my face expression and gestures. I have the option of turning off my camera, and then you will just hear my voice. But it's not the same. We understand the visual communication, the body speaks. There's another classic paper about communication and relationship about that. It is very important to analyze the whole process of communication. This text It may be simple, 26 paragraphs, but it's one of the most important texts that came to my hands in my professional academic background training throughout my undergraduation and graduate studies. No one addressed this topic in the depth of this text. It's also interesting to share this Microsoft report because they asked the teachers if, or the professors, if they develop social emotional competence, social emotional skills. 80% of them said they do. But when they ask the students, 60% of them say they don't. So it is not only teamwork, but how do I work in a team? What are the cares I have to take with my speech? Am I a good listener when I'm working in a team, working in a collaborative platform? Am I exercising my hearing skills? Do I have an active hearing? We have to train and perfection it, improve it and perfection it throughout time. And this is what I try to do. Try to develop, increasingly develop the skill of being a good listener. This slide summarizes, it's another tip that can be remembered: saying the right thing at the right time to the right person and in the right way. All of that requires strategy, requires perception. There are moments where we identify that our listener is not open to a harsh issue or a more complex issue that requires decision making. But there are moments that we cannot wait. There are decisions that have to be made, but in a moment. But whenever possible, within a strategy, it is important to be able to build sound relationships, and we have a great responsibility in defining these strategies. Another key concept are paradigms. This is another word that I didn't heard up to the moment I started in Sinai. There's a lot of material about that. Scholars have been talking about mindset, but paradigms, our mental models, the way we see things, our filters, the way we see the world from our filters. And if we do not pay attention to our paradigms, they can betray us. We can fail to see an opportunity due to paradigms. And this happens throughout history. We remember, for instance, in here the case in the 16th century, Galileo trying to prove that the Earth was not the center of the universe, but the sun. This cost him a lot. But people involved back that time couldn't see it. And this is so throughout history. Many companies lost opportunities to develop products and technologies due to their paradigms. So scholars say the more peripheric we are in a topic, the greater the chance to see it from a different angle. History shows that, for instance, watches and clocks. Swiss is famous to manufacture quality clocks and watches. And the development of quartz watch was made by Switzerland. But the productive chain in the 30s, in the 1930s, thought, well, this is not the way. Mechanic watches work perfectly, and quartz watch developed by Swiss were produced through a partnership with Texas Instruments in Japan. So an American company, a Japanese company that developed quartz watches. Kodak, a world famous company, had in their development the principle of the reproducing machine, but they didn't take on, and Xerox developed it. Also, the digital photographic camera was developed within Kodak Labs, but they didn't take on with the project, and they failed because they were not able to implement this innovation. And other examples like Apple, Netflix, Blockbuster had a domain of film location in VHS tapes, and they didn't understand the movement that was coming of sharing tapes or even streaming. And someone developed a technology, of course, with a strong financial support, and Blockbuster failed because they failed to change their business model. So paradigms are testing us all the time, and we have all this internal exercise to try to understand what is going on in our surroundings. Are we paying attention to what may affect our business in the future? And the same for our lives. We are resistant to change. And this resistance is a lot related to our paradigms. Paradigms also have a good side because it filters what is right or wrong in our understanding in a short term, which is good for our safety. But we have to train and develop this capacity of reviewing our paradigms, to pay attention to novelties, to what is emerging as disruptive innovations that will change all the concepts, so we can adapt fast, so we have flexibility and resilience. Everything is related to our paradigm. The professor mentioned here, Leandro Carnal, is a scholar that, a philosopher that address this paradigm shift. This is a topic that is worth it to study into depth. And the material of paradigm says that nothing that you did in the past can guarantee your future, which is extremely important to understand in every environment, a corporate environment, personal environment. Anything that you did in the past can't guarantee your future. So we have to work to maintain our performance. If we are tied to our paradigms and just remember what we did, we may fail in the future. This won't guarantee our future. Emotional intelligence. This is the third concept we are approaching. This is an extremely important concept, also world well known. I read this book a few times. I just read it again in a course that is capacity building course in Senai. It's the first book we read this year by Professor Goldman. And I also went to a talk by Professor Daniel Goldman here in São Paulo when he came. This is an issue that I study a lot. Those who read it, they know that Daniel Goldman says that our intelligence is connected to 20% our cognitive intelligence and 80% emotional intelligence. And the most important concept in the book is the first here, what he calls as emotional kidnapping. It's a heavy concept, but it describes what happens when we are provoked or we lose or we are about to lose control of a situation. That moment where the blood hits in our veins and we are exasperated, and if we are not careful, our brain kidnaps us and we lose the domain, we lose the control of the situation. Exactly that. We don't know what we are doing, or we don't know what we are speaking. It is very common in the first seconds of kidnapping, saying something that we shouldn't, that will hurt someone, will hurt the person we are talking to, and then you cannot retreat because it's said. So that's why the popular wisdom says we are tense, when you are losing your mind, count to 10. So you can oxygenate your brains by oxygenating your lungs, breathing, and in this 10 seconds is the time necessary to reorganize the ideas and select better what words to say. So we shouldn't hush. Rush is the enemy in the communication process, especially in the moments of tension and conflict that we live in our everyday lives. So it's a relatively simple concept, but we have to work to develop and practice a lot, because this is the natural trend. React to an action. Something is provoking us and we want to respond, we want to attack our interlocutor, we want to defend ourselves, and oftentimes silence is our better ally, our greatest ally. And breathe and cool your brain, and don't let your brain take your actions, and this could be a disaster. He also talks about hope, state of mind, optimism. This is a very interesting book. It was written so many years ago, and it is still, we can do a parallel with the moment we are living. Of course, optimism won't be a vaccine or decrease the seriousness or the severe moments we are living with the pandemics, but it talks in a scientific way how important it is to be optimist for your health, for your well-being. Optimism and well-being improves our immunological system, and that will be ready, our immune system to be ready to fight virus and bacteria. So I would like to share this with you. And this is scientific data, it's not guessing about a topic. There are data to back this theory and this concept of emotional intelligence. And the book also addresses anxiety, and then a sequence of concepts we just approached: empathy, active listening, nonverbal communication, all of that sum up and complement itself in communication process. How to hear someone, the nonverbal communication, empathy, and these all make of emotional intelligence. Energy, harmony, harmonious environment, a good environment, so high performance can prevail. Another example Daniel mentions in the book is when a baby is still not able to communicate through words, they establish a relationship and a symphony, a fine-tuning with their mother, with direct communication, non-verbal communication. So I recommend this book. This is an important work for leaders and educators. Not always do we have space in our curriculum to work with this as a whole, with this book as a whole, but it's important to have some moment to work with this topic with students and leaders and the team, managerial teams, once we understand that this topic is not usually addressed in our professional training. This other author, Augusto Cury, a Brazilian, so these are more recent books. Cury is the formulator of the multifocal theory. His book was translated for more than 70 countries with more than 20 million books sold just in Brazil. And he was provoked by one of the leaders here at Senai. And I started to study this topic, and Cury says that this is the mal de siècle. Anxiety is the mal de siècle, which is the accelerated thinking and how much we are immersed, submerged in our life, constantly looking screens, our mobile, always thinking that we are losing time, we are losing information. This hinders our understanding. And what is very interesting in Cury's story, I've been studying him as a lot as an educator, that he, in every book, he says he was not a good student. His educational experience was not good, was frustrating. So teachers, professor couldn't understand him, and he couldn't be quiet in a classroom, so he didn't have a good learning experience. And then he became a psychiatrist, an investigator, researcher with a very interesting program for schools to control anxiety. Anxiety, in his definition, is the excess of future thinking. If depression is the excess on past thinking, anxiety is excess on future thinking. All the youth have this anxiety. They want to solve everything for tomorrow. Everything will end today. How much will I make in my future job? When will I be promoted? This anxiety has to be contained, people have to learn that in life there will be moments of frustration, there will be moments of testing resilience, patience, and this has to be built in a conceptual way in the first moment, and then exercised with all those who interact with students and collaborators. So it is not worth it to have a presentation, here some slides, and then do not try to put this into practice of being a good listener, be close to different ideas, or not using emotional intelligence, or being anxious to the most. So social emotional competences, social emotional skills have to be worked by example. This is the best way to educate as a whole for anything, to being models to our students, to our team. We have to lead this process and be responsible to be the example. At school, in our relationships, in the streets, in the social media, anything that has human interaction. So these are the 4 concepts I would like to share with you. Now I will share 2 successful experiences that we had here in the school in a short time. The first one was based in this document, the National Common Curricula Base. It is a document prepared by the Ministry or the Department of Education of Brazil, establishing all the bases for elementary education and mid-school and high school, so the basis of Brazilian education. And in this version, they established 10 general skills for education. Once again, they establish in a document, but how would teachers develop these competences, these skills with their students? This is the issue. So here you can observe the 5 first established here in the slide. And when we had knowledge about this structure, and this the last 5. So what did we do? Our team in educational management here in school that has 11 people. So we had the idea of working systems in a way that each manager, each project leader would study each of the systems and prepare a presentation that was shared with our school team, school management team. So here is the team, just to highlight. Luciana, for instance, our financial administrative manager, talked about communication process. She uses communication process every day in her activity, be it written, verbal, telephone, personal attention. So she studied into depth the topic, both in the document of the Ministry of Education and a lot of things that is available. And this is a very rich moment for the school management team, because we have the opportunity of having one person that won't be interrupted with a technical presentation about a topic related to behavior, a topic that is social emotional skill that is key for those presenting and for all of us receiving the class about this topic. Julio, the pedagogical coordinator, he talked about scientific and creative thinking that has a lot to do with his activity here in the school. And Professor Bettoni talked about knowledge. He is coordinator for technical school. Luciano, he works with a relationship with industry, and he talked about argumentation, which is one of the topics of the document. Belvedere is someone in the team that always rides a bike, has a great concern about health. So he studied and presented self-knowledge and self-care. And he's an advocate of the issue, because he studied the topic to have a full domain, but he added his personal experience. Vampel talked about digital culture. It's a wonderful presentation using resources that we are not familiar with. We use a lot PowerPoint, but he used other tools with video edition, graphic design. Wonderful. He overcame all our expectations by far. This is very good when we are able to organize the topic and allow people to learn, develop, and multiply their learnings, not only for the management team in this case, but all the teachers and professors under his leadership. Michel, our maintenance and conservation supervisor, he talked about empathy and cooperation. He works with a lot of teams, so it's a very interesting exercise. Our quality of life analysts, Carla, talked about citizenship, responsibility, and autonomy, and Fernanda about life projects. And our librarians, one working morning and afternoon, the other one works by night, they talked about cultural repertoire. So this was a fantastic experience, very interesting, that surely will be repeated as soon as we have another opportunity. The other successful experience we had was promoting, in the first days, the establishing a life project with the students. We've been working the social emotional topics with our teams for a while. Last year, we had this dedicated and detailed work with the Ministry of Education. And this year, we organized for the new classes that started February, a complete week of activities with dynamic exercises. And the challenge was we always had this drama exercises, which is key for social emotional skills. So in role playing dramas, in role playing, you understand the other. And this year, we had to do it from afar. Um, Role playing applied to these new platforms was a major challenge, but the result was excellent. We didn't know that the platform will provide so many tools that are hidden and allow for working in a collaborative way. We have here the agenda. We worked with self-knowledge, social responsibility, autonomy, self-knowledge and communication and social intelligence. This was very important due to the lack of understanding on the topic, so communication in platforms. So then autonomy and decision making, social responsibility, and we closed with preparing a document talking about future perspective, and students wrote their project of life. And this document that was a fantastic exercise for all the students is helping us a lot. When the coordination, the analysts that work with quality of life, that work a lot with the students, they address, for instance, school evasion, the dropouts, because it is part of our trajectory of building future to work with that. So with this document in hands, it's easier to work with this hard topic in such a hard time. It's even more complicated to deal with a dropping out during the pandemics. So with the team, mastering competences, skills that are so important for developing perspective of future, purpose of life, gave our students that started in 2021 to work this intense week. It's a week of intense activities. And finally, our provocation is our responsibility for all of us, leaders of processes, of teams, of educators, to build together and to be a beacon more than teaching. I think this is not the topic, but not teaching, but sharing what we learn, sharing what we learn every day. And those in the leadership positions, leaders with their teams, educators with their students, be the beacon for processes, guiding this action in an assertive fashion based on fundamentals, on documents. It's not just life experience. We cannot use just that, although we have a trend to do it. We know, we live a little bit, we think we know a little bit. But we always say that we have to use documents, works, literature reference to always base our actions in scientific knowledge, and whatever experience contribute is always welcome. So these steps represent our success trajectory that is in our hands, and it's a great joy. It is a great joy to have this responsibility and this experience, to be able to observe and see teams working with high performance, youth having their life transformed, behaviors being fully modified for the best, and bringing success, well-being, progress for people. This is all we want, and this is what we wish. Having a focus, human development. Professor Spada, this is what I had to present, and I'm available in case of any question. We can try to answer. Perfect. I would ask participants if they have questions, do it in the Q&A icon. I have a first question here. Yesid Husik from Colombia. Good morning, greetings from Colombia. Very interesting topic, great presentation. My question is, for these types of intelligence, be it multifocal or emotional, is there also a measure like IQ that enables quantifying or measure how intelligent a person is? I mean, is there any measurement to quantify emotional intelligence or quantify multifocal intelligence? I don't know if you are able to answer, Marcio. I can try. Yes, there are tools. Companies are using them, although, well, the most famous one that is being used is Human Guide, is the tool we use here at Sanai in our selective processes. This is a tool that draws a profile that is very interesting and very close to reality in terms of behavior and relationship. But no tool, I believe, so far, can be good enough to prove how person will be in daily life. So again, we apply knowledge tests and practical tests to test skills, but we can only know our collaborators in our daily work, in face of problems, in face of difficult situations. So it is key to also prepare our students, because they will also be submitted to this kind of test. As I said, artificial intelligence is going fast, but it is still not able to capture everything that someone will present in the daily work. Differently from IQ tests, that is already consolidated. So answering in an objective way, yes, there are tools, they are used by the company, but only in the daily practice you will understand the performance. As I didn't receive all the questions, I have a question here, maybe a reflection. Currently, OECD, and in the case of Brazil, also in our Ministry or Department of Education and Culture and the Department of Science and Technology, they recommend some social emotional skills. We are receiving more questions, but just to continue, we have recommendations by OECD that rank a set of social emotional skills. Our Ministry of Education also has a recommendation for that. I don't know if you can comment which are the recommendations of international institutions that try to give a reference or a north for countries and for educators. Okay, yes, this is true, that reference literature that indicate the importance of working with that. I can talk about the ILO documents that is very much connected to professional training and establish clearly the need to develop social emotional skills, as in our plan of courses here in Sebrae. So identify the skills. It is possible. It is possible, and it's actually quite easy by hearing professionals, which is the methodology we use here in our committee, and also by using the international organizations' recommendations. The issue is how to develop the competences, because you can see there in the plan of course and the plan of competences, it's clear you need to develop teamwork skill, and you have to develop empathy. So the whole of competences, of skills, is vast, but these 4 items we discussed here, how to listen or to hear, they cover a number of social emotional skills that are required in the market. So by talking to the professors here, we have to establish how to develop, how to enable students to have an experience of living a situation that an emotional situation. And this requires the whole playing, and it's not enough to read, you have to experience. So the work of institutions to provide training for the students have to be like that. And we as leaders, we have to pay very much attention, very close attention to our teams, because this is not trivial. People do not learn that in their school, in their college. So this is an ongoing training, an ongoing information that has to be developed by leadership, in my understanding. I think I can also make another comment here, Professor Marinho, that for each technological area, each technological sector, there are the recommended socio-emotional skills, which are a set of socio-emotional skills. But those preparing a course or looking for a course for different sectors, they have, vis-a-vis the technical committee, listen and analyze which competences are more important for that technological course. For instance, we are working in the airspace technology, and there they have a sentence that means a lot for them. Making a mistake is serious, but hiding a mistake is a crime. So a professional in that sector has a great responsibility. So social emotional skills to form a professional for that sector, of course, should respond to all the recommendations of OECD and the Ministry of Education, but has a more special and customized feature for the sector. Well, Manuel Ticas asked, well, can you repeat the name of the tool used by Senai? Can you strengthen? Human Guide. Human Guide. Milena Peñaranda.
Buenos dias, eu saúdo a Milena Panara Figueroa.
Good morning, greetings from Milena Peñaranda. So within the social emotional skills for the world skills, to what social emotional competences do you suggest to start, and why? I will repeat because I was not good in reading that. So within the social emotional training for world skill competitors, with which social emotional competences you suggest start your course, and why? 2, paradigm and emotional intelligence. These 2 from the 4 we addressed today for the competitors, for the world skill competitors, is key. Paradigm for a simple reason, because our competitors, they can't be tied to history. They are trained and they are fully capable of conducting complex tasks in shorter times, as it is in sports. So our competitors, in our understanding, must have a very good definition of what is the paradigm to avoid creating a barrier. So in order to do something different, using another technique that can improve performance is key to understand paradigm. And emotional intelligence to control our competitors when they are in the competition space, in contests. They are concentrated and they have to be able to shield themselves from everything that is going out. This requires to be able in social and in emotional intelligence. For instance, in sports, last week we saw Djokovic changing the game. He was losing from TT Mas, and last week Verstappen also could pass Hamilton in the F1 race, F1 car race. So paradigm and emotional intelligence are key concepts. Mr. Mario Vasquez asked, to teach social emotional competences, what space should have importance considering the doing and the being skills? Okay, so we understand that the curriculum, the syllabus has to be developed, and sometimes there's no time, there's no forecast for that. It's not reflected in the syllabus because we have to work this in the daily work. But it shouldn't be just in the daily work. We need some conceptual moment. We should explain the students and the teachers, and they have to convey the concept, leave it, try it, and from that, working the text, how to hear in an afternoon with role playing, with experiencing, then it will be easier for the teacher. Because first we need an example of being a good listener. Because then it's easier. Oh, but do you remember when we that day we work the concept on how to listen down, how to listen? Now this is the moment to exercise this complex skill and improve our knowledge. You don't have to give a class again, but you have to remember that throughout the whole course, throughout the period the student is in the institution. I'm learning throughout all these years. I have daily exercises about that. So it is not possible to solve all the problems during the time we have the students with us, but we have to provide this moment of conceptualizing skills and give them opportunity to experience. So I work the competence on how to hear, how to listen. And next week I will have a teamwork. I can remember then. Do you remember? Now we have a chance to in this work group to put into practice. So it is not just technical content, it's not just knowledge, but also work, relationship, and importance of knowing how to listen. Mrs. Elsie Escolar asks how your experience helped in the social emotional skills working during pandemics. Well, it helped me a lot. In a first moment, we learned, we have to learn as everybody very fast. This week I watched a video of Salam Kam from Khan Academy. In 2011, they already mentioned the need to use platforms to provide the experience of inverted classroom. They learn at home and do the exercise at school or the other way around. And we thought it would take a while, and the pandemics accelerated everything. I was very worried in the beginning with the remote classes, how to establish the communication in the face-to-face, eye in the eye. And I always motivated people to leave their cameras on, and also the teachers and students, because this will be the way to learn from now on. This won't change anymore. So our meeting here, for instance, the management team, that is a weekly meeting on Wednesdays, your cameras on all the time. We are 12 people. So we see everybody in the screen and we can see people. So we have to value the relationship, the non-verbal communication. Paradigm as another exercise that has to be carried out. And now it is no longer presential, it's online. the students are not here, and we have to find simulators and other ways. Demonstration is part of our methodology, and we broadcast live classes from our workshops. This is an excellent exercise of paradigm shift. Since last year, we started to have them as such. And this is key to our relationship as a whole, to build sound relationships, sound professional relationships, sound personal relationships. It is key. Professor Marinho, I would like to thank you and thank all the participants. Thank our Mrs. Alcia Escolar, Laura Corporan, our educational committee from World Skills America, the board, the official and technical delegates from the member countries of World Skills America, Ms. Sylvia for translation from Portuguese English, and Carmen is Spanish, Portuguese into Spanish, Merino, and also we have another, well, we have 3 questions still. Well, Paris logos. If we can only improve what we can measure, can you share your experiences in measurement and planning for skill development, for soft skills development? I would say that behavior change is easily observed. Regardless of having a tool to measure it, we can use self-evaluation, we can use a group evaluation with students and collaborators, but I would say that it is clear perception. The behavioral change when as people started to study, which is the point here. It's not just a presentation and the change will immediately occur. People have to study the topic and understand the importance, go into depth, and time will show if the person is applying this or not. So I do this with my team, with the 12 people that work directly. We have 70 people here, and the 12 people that I work directly, we do it personally, collectively with guidance and conversation, and individually, where we talk a lot about soft skills and how important it is for the development and for performance. And we see in a short term concrete behavioral changes. And students, we have this reported by our teachers. I also talk to them, but in the daily life as teachers, professors with them. And it is easy to observe their behavioral change when they are here with us. Another question by Mrs. Peñaranda and Mr. Maldonado. What to do when the facilitator has too much empathy in virtual classes? Well, these are new times and new challenges that we have, and we have to follow the guidelines, ethics manual. I don't know if I understand well. We have to provide individual guidance, so the person has to think on that. But these are the challenges of the new times. A comment by Mrs. Fernandez. In order to shifting paradigms should be in the curricular design, and should we require this to the professors to implement this provocation, since leadership to educational works. Mr. Martinez says, considering the absence in the classes, what are the alternatives you propose to develop virtual skills? Well, we have this through platforms. We use Teams here in Microsoft, and we had Teams from Microsoft, and we have the dynamics in mobile phones, or the role-playing. One of the dynamics is by drawing. So they need to have paper and pencil in hand. And they do it, and they take pictures in the mobile and they say to the group, and we organize the images, everything done online for the first time. And this was a fantastic experience. So it is possible. We just have to shift this paradigm. And once again, I just like to remind you that the text will be sent in English or Spanish to you. And I recommend reading it and saying that this action, although we are in an institution, an organization, we have to respect hierarchical structure, this is something we can master and advance. We don't need budget for that. We don't need special authorization, because it's the very concept of education, of people formation, training, and it's much more connected to your willing and engagement to provide this opportunity. We don't need to prepare any complex project, none of that. We understand that these competences, these skills, and most of the reference documents for these competences, the most important thing is thinking on how to instrumentalize our professors, our leaders that have to develop that for being successful in their activities. We have a question by Mr. Soto Diaz. Good morning, very interesting talk. Can you elaborate a little bit more about exercise in Project of Life for our students? My suggestion is, well, I want to propose the following. This question, Marinho, is so complex and requires so much information that I will ask you, Victor, leave your email in the chat box. Paul will take note. We will send it to Professor Marinho, and he will answer you, because I understand that this has to be complemented by a series, by material, by background material, so you can receive it, read it, and then talk to Professor Marinho with a direct dialogue. So, Victor, I will ask you to leave your email address in the chat, because this won't be just an answer. This will be a mentorship work. Mrs. Quijano says, good morning, greetings from ITCA, FEPAD, El Salvador. Excellent talk, and I have a doubt. What is the difference between emotional intelligence and multifocal intelligence? Don't know if you can answer, because I have to say that I can't, I'm not able. Well, Augusto Curi proposed this concept. He says that he also learned about emotional intelligence by Danielle Goldman, but Augusto Curi says that not only emotional intelligence is important, and then we introduced the issue of anxiety and controlling emotions in a more comprehensive way, this controlling this anguish about future, that we don't have to be in a hurry to decide our future. there are people getting ill because they youth being sick because they have to decide what to do for the rest of their lives. And we have to say this is not just one career for your whole life. There will be many. So I recommend, there's a lot of material available about Augusto Cury. This is a scholar that we use a lot. Mrs. Pineda said, what are the techniques to improve students' attention? Marinho, if you can give a brief answer. And Eva, once again, you can, if you want, you can leave your email address in the chat. We will convey this. Paul will take note and give this to Professor Marinho to prepare a more elaborated answer and send you by email. Well, my suggestion is working the text, how to hear, how to listen. This improves a lot the attention. Alina Rodriguez, Mrs. Alina Rodriguez says, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, and I was charmed by your talk. And I would like to hear what is the recommendation for the best competence to emphasize in a class integrated with teenagers and adults, that teenagers without experience and adults in the same study, but with some work experience. Alina, also, if you can leave your email, and Marinho will elaborate more the answer. Now he will just give a brief answer and complement it later, okay? Yes, the answer is the same of the previous, the text, how to listen. I say the text, of course, I don't have the, it's not to exhaust the topic because it is a text of just 26 paragraphs, but this will promote thinking about and researching about the topic. There's a lot of material, a lot of literature, videos, and it is important to study how to concentrate attention, how to, and it's also important to remember that it's not possible to be 4 hours concentrated, not even one straight hour. So professors, teachers have to think moments so that teenagers, youth, adults can empty their heads and breathe, because concentrating all the time is really impossible.
Os nossos colegas estão anotaram aí o correio eletrônico e
so we will take notes of these emails, and if you don't have answer within 3 days, please get in touch with World Skills America's secretary, and we will ask Professor Marinho to contribute specifically with the topic you asked. So I thanked once again everybody, all the delegates, Ms. Elsie, Mrs. Moura, the steering committee, the Sylvia and Carmen, thank you for your translation. We surpassed some minutes, but Professor Marcio Marinho, thank you from the bottom of our heart. We have this mission of sharing with all the educators in World Skills Americas our educational experiences, especially functional education. And you gave us a significant contribution. And as you see the interest, we surpassed 300 participants. So probably we will call you once again next year for another update, for another contribution to all of them. So all the participants, thank you very, very much. Do not forget, we will be together in our next webinar, and we will contact all of you. And if you want to be ambassadors and invite your colleagues, we thank you. Because the only possible way to provide dignity to humankind is through education, and especially professional education. So we can really provide a social economic transformation. So once again, thank you very much for your presence. Professor Marinho, once again, thank you very much. See you.